This is Matt from Dice of the Round Table. Thanks for checking out another video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed the content, and otherwise check the description. Links to see me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and the website. So, what am I going to be talking about today? Bolt Action, 2nd edition. I'm doing these snippets covering different things. This one's probably going to be a little bit longer than normal, but bear with me on this one because we're talking about terrain and just an overview of terrain that you could see in a game. So with that, I'm going to get to the table and show off some terrain that I have as some examples. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to just go over some of what you see here. So I got a river ford piece to represent some river, dragon teeth tank traps, road, we got some smoke, ruined house, stone wall, barbed wire, we got some, a forest or a tree, and if you want, there's no forest because it's got one tree, fine, I can do this too. I got a hill, and I got a building. Now I'll cover most of the options. So, first of all, what I'm going to have here is the gaming map that I have. This is considered open ground. As you can see, I have a tank, I got a truck, an artillery piece, infantry. Open ground, nothing matters. Everything can move. And if you're like, what is the half track? A half track counts as a tracked vehicle. It does have some special movement options, but for all purposes of terrain, it counts as a tracked vehicle. So this is open ground. Open ground, they can move. There's no penalty, no special conditions. Now, let's talk about this. This would be rough ground. Okay? Or you could consider this rough ground, or even something like this, rough ground. And any forest templates, rough ground. And rocks would be rough ground. We'll use this one. Oh, and I forgot, I do have bow cage. So this is going to be rough ground consideration. Now, rough ground, infantry can walk through all this. Artillery cannot move through any of this. Artillery is going to have to move around. Now, if for some reason you start the game with the artillery inside of the terrain like so, it's going to stay there. It's not moving out. It's there. Or if you start it up on the hill, it's there. It's not coming down. Trucks. They are not going to be moving through this rough terrain either. They got wheels. They like flat ground. They like roads. This is a no-go. Tanks, we're okay. They're going to do the same as an infantry. They have an advance order, but no running. The caveat is going to be this one, because this is tank traps. The vehicle cannot go through tank traps. Barbed wire, yes. So just keeping that in mind, that this is technically going to be tank traps, not going to go through. But it can come up a hill, it can go through a ford, barbed wire, through trees, forest, it can advance. Now, these will also be called obstacles. So will these. So, infantry can advance over and through. Artillery, stopping at the wall, stopping at the bow cage, not going through it. It's stopping. Wheel vehicles, same thing. They're going to stop. Now, you said this was rough ground. It can be rough ground, obstacles. You'll see in Bolt Action there is, I haven't come across my favorite one yet, but there are certain terminologies that can cross into different areas. The tank can move through. The only exception is, you'll see this in the rules, tank traps, bow cage. Anything that is designated as an anti-tank obstacle, impassable bow cage, or equivalent, it stops all vehicles. So the tank can't move through a tank trap, and typically it can't move through bow cage. There are hedgerow cutters available to allies that help modify that. So you're not going to go through this. That's a no-go. This, we're fine. The tank's going to go through. The tank's going to go through. This is going to be rough ground, so no running. It's only advancing. That's where this stuff overlaps. Building, ruin building. For intents and purposes, this is not a building. I saved it in here. This is going to be more of an obstacle. Obstacle, not a building. So a tank can charge through a building that has been destroyed. So consider this an obstacle. This is a building. A building is anything considered that's not been shot up and turned into ruins. So buildings, infantry can move through into this, no issues. As you can guess, artillery pieces can't move in, but maybe you have a building that's a bunker. It's designed for artillery. You can put an artillery piece inside of a bunker at the start of the game, but it's not coming out. Now, buildings. Wheeled vehicles, they're not going to go into a building unless you can designate with your opponent that maybe there's a garage or something, and the door's going to have to be open and it can park in a garage. I've never played in a scenario like that, but it might be fun to make one now. And tanks. This is where it gets a little caveat. The unit cannot enter or move within this kind of terrain, except the heavy or super heavy tanks may move through and demolish buildings. So this is a medium tank, no go. It's going to go around the building. But if it was a heavy or super heavy tank, I might be able to demolish the building and drive through it. Keep that in mind when you're playing with your Tiger, Panthers, your KV options for Soviets, and some of the other ones like Super Pershing for the Americans. So that's that. Last one let's talk about is roads. Okay? Roads, kind of like open ground. Infantry are happy. Artillery is happy. Vehicles are super happy. Why are they super happy? If you start and end on a road, you get double the movement. Which means if you run this vehicle, you're going to be moving this vehicle 48 inches on all road. Remember, it only applies to road. Same for tanks. If you run this, you got 36 inches or you got 18 inches on an advance. So if you got roads on your table, make sure to be on the setup, maybe not an unfair advantage if you're playing towards an objective. Or play as you wish. Now, if you check out any bolt action terrain tables, that's what's going to be covered. Let me talk about the one terrain that's not found unless you turn into the smoke section of page 97. Smoke counts as soft cover and dense terrain. What is dense terrain, you may ask? Brought up in smoke. It's also brought up in the top secret beige-ish box on page 57 of the thick book. Dense terrain. For practical purpose, we assume that a unit is always in cover if at least 50% of its miles are inside a wood or comparable area of dense terrain. So wood templates and smoke are dense terrain. What dense terrain is, it is convenient to assume all models whose bases are entirely in the terrain are within it, as it avoids any uncertainty in the case of troopers who may be partially inside. And then you have to go into shooting from cover. So, where at least 50% of the model in the unit are firing from directly behind a wall or similar obstacles, we're skipping that part, going down to, where is it? When they are positioned within dense terrain and touching its boundary, and their shots cross less than 1 inch of the dense terrain they are occupying. Which means, since these are 1-inch bases, any infantry model within an inch or less of the outside of this can shoot. If you're on this side, you cannot shoot out of this terrain. You have to be up on the edge of it. The same for a smoke round. If the smoke's here, you're back here, you're not shooting out of it. If you're up on the edge of the smoke, you can shoot out. Dense terrain gets a little tricky. You got to go dig in the rules for it. But it does, it's explicit that woods are considered dense terrain. So if you're playing with someone that just puts trees down, that's fine. But you got to dictate, is this all going to be woods? I model mine, so it's on a template, so we know it's all woods. So it's easier to measure off that. So that is terrain. We'll get into aspects of shooting. I'll cover it briefly. Usually when I'm playing, this is going to be soft cover. These obstacles are usually all soft cover. The reason is, it's not hard cover. Hard cover is like a fortified position. This is also inside of a building. But if I had maybe sandbags piled up around this, I might turn this into hard cover. The argument can be made, it's on your opponent. There are no hard, strict rules on this. This could be hard cover, where a picket fence will be light cover or soft cover. This is soft cover because it can shoot through the bow cage. Unless you want to play with your opponent and say, this is really dense bow cage, so it's hard cover shooting through. But woods are soft cover. If you had like emplacements, that could be pushed to hard cover. Again, you and your opponent talk about it, unless someone else is setting up the table. When I run tournaments, I give out a sheet saying what is and what is not, what everything is. If I'm like all stone walls are hard cover, bow cage soft cover, I also designate what type of terrain it is, so they know if their vehicles can move to it, so there's no issue. A little bit on the longer side, but this is talking about terrain. And I hope I made it condensed enough that it gave you an idea. Put in the comments if you have a question. Maybe I missed something. Let me know what I missed. And we'll go from there. So thanks again for checking out the channel. Thanks for checking this out. Bolt Action Terrain. See you later.